The trial of the 5 men accused of killing Senzo Meyiwa has adjourned as legal teams deliberate on the state's application to have a number of media houses banned from broadcasting the matter. The state has slammed TV journalists in particular for what it says was the harassment of the third witness who was due to testify this morning. Yesterday, proceedings were also postponed after another state witness was unavailable. That was due to a problem with travel arrangements, flights basically from KZN to Pretoria. We're going to speak hopefully more about what happened in court today. We're able to speak, in fact, to William Bird from Media Monitoring Africa now joining us. William, a very good afternoon to you. So for those who missed it, so what basically happened this morning was, as this accused, one of the people who were in the house when Senzo Meyiwa was shot in 2014 was at court, what we saw was a chase led, as was said, described by Advocate Zandile Mshololo, by the three media houses, the public broadcasters, ourselves, and ENCA. Did we take it too far?
Well, I think the short answer to that is yes. I think that when media behave in a manner that undermines the decorum and potentially, the dignity of the court, even though it wasn't itself in the courtroom, in the actual courtroom, but in the court building.
Okay, I think we're having a bit of a connection issue there with William. If you are still able to hear me, William, you were just describing why what happened today was so problematic. Are you still there?
I'm here.
You can finish your point, sir. We can hear you now.
Sorry. I think it's that delightful load shedding thing that affects all of us. So what had happened is that the courts seemed to have said, go to the court manager, make an apology, through a letter, and hopefully then the court would then have decided to allow the broadcasters back into the room. From your point that you've just reported on now, that the state is actually arguing that they should be banned, I think that's a real problem. Sure, if the media misbehave, sanction them, ask them to apologize and commit to behaving in a manner that is in line with the court's process. I think there's nothing wrong with that, as any person who misbehaves would be asked to do. Mm-hmm. But to ban them from the trial, I think, would be a very, very grave error and certainly something we would strongly oppose.
Does it matter, though, that what is being proposed, and this was brought forward by, I think, Advocate Zandile Mshololo, who's representative for accused number 5, that as identified in what happened today, it was the 3 news channels who were involved in that in the main, and the judge was saying what he wants to see happen now is the naming of the media houses involved, and that the sanction should be targeted specifically at them. So, i.e., perhaps radio and print would be able to still cover the trial fully.
Well, as I understand it, some of the journalists are still live tweeting from the courtroom, so they were doing that. So the judge didn't impose a media ban. I think it's just a coincidence that it was the 3 broadcast channels that were there and that behaved in that manner. And fair enough. If they err and they make mistakes, which all of us do, they need to apologize. But for them to then be removed from the trial from this point going forward, I think would be a significant overreach. By all means, sanction appropriately and make sure that they apologize. And I don't see a problem with the judge saying, the following media behaved. They've sent us a letter of apology and name them, and then move on. This is about a murder trial. It's not. It shouldn't be about whether the media have access. Yes, they made an error and they crossed across the line. Apologize, move on.
So just as you said, this is about a man who was murdered, Senzo Meyiwa, a family that is on a quest for justice for their murdered son, their murdered brother. And what the judge said today was that the presence of the media in court cases is an exception. So in order for justice to be meted out, we don't actually have to be present for that to happen. So how does what happened today then lead to possibly future complications around media rights and access to trials?
Well, it shouldn't, is the short answer. We were involved as an amicus, in fact, in securing that precedent, that global precedent around media access to criminal trials, where the default now is that media should be there in order to help people have a better sense and understand how the justice system works. So that's the default ruling that applies. It's a Supreme Court of Appeal judgment, so it hasn't been confirmed by the Constitutional Court, but it stands as precedent that all of our courts will have to adhere to. So the media isn't essential for a trial to go ahead, obviously, but where the media do want to report on things, they do so in a manner that is responsible within the confines and rules as set out by the judge, but it's in a way that encourages and allows open justice. It's precisely because people can watch this on a live streaming basis and follow what reporters are telling from court that they can really understand how the criminal process works. And that's a really good thing. It's good for open justice. It's good for media freedom. It's good for deepening and making people have a greater respect of how democracy works. So if that is to be reversed, in other words, if the judge then says we are going to ban the media from this, then that would be a really, really problematic thing to do.
Finally, then, what then is the lesson for ourselves as journalists, as media houses, from what happened today in the High Court in Pretoria?
Look, the witness, no one knew it was. The media were understandably very excited and they wanted to get their story. They're going to go all out to do that. In this instance, I think they let their excitement and their desire to be first with revealing the identity get ahead of their behavior, and they're going to need to make sure that they behave in accordance with the rules as expected by the court. So the basics is, yes, you want to get the story, but don't forget that you're a journalist that needs to behave in an ethical and professional manner.
You said ethical and professional manner. Was the conduct of the journalists today unethical?
Well, in respect, and I haven't seen the actual footage of the way that they behaved, but from what I've heard and from what I've been told by some of the journalists, it sounds certainly as though it wasn't professional. Whether it wasn't ethical, well, I'd need to view it to make that claim.
William Bird, good to have your time as always. Thank you. Now,